Good evening, Blue Jays fans, and welcome to another lovely evening of Jaybird watching. Happy off day to everybody, and as of last night, after a walk-off victory against the Miami Marlins for a sweep, feeling the Buff-A-Love, guys. So, how we doing? So, Mr. Corsair and Brendan Panikar joining me per the usual in my week of hosting. How are you guys doing?
Doing awesome. After last night, absolutely.
Did you see that Bills tweet about the Blue Jays? All right, so the Bills put out a tweet, and it says the Buffalo Bills and the Toronto Blue Jays squish the fish because they beat the Miami Marlins.
There you go.
There you go.
Yes.
Squish the
It.
fish.
Speaking of, I'll just bring this out.
There you go.
Just like when they
my incognito Blue Bills.
Yeah.
But yes, so it was a nice little home swing, but we'll get to that here in a few minutes. But we have another thing we had to celebrate, guys. We have another Toronto Blue Jay that won the Player of the Month award, and that is Marcus Semien. And holy shnikes is about the best way I can describe this, uptick in production since a kind of sluggish April. But he has been on a steady cliff heading up toward the moon at this point and has been part of the carrying force behind the Blue Jays offense. I'm going to let you kick this one off, Mr. Panikar, and tell me, what has this meant to you as a Blue Jays fan, watching somebody like Marcus Semien really take off?
You know what's insane is that the Blue Jays right now have two of the top three most valuable hitters in all of baseball. That is just insanity. And they've only gotten 3 games of George Springer. Marcus Semien has more than made up for the loss of Springer. Obviously, Springer would put this lineup over the top, especially with the way Lourdes Gurriel Jr. has heated up recently. Rowdy looks like he's getting a stroke back a little bit. Hey, being in Buffalo again, of course he's going to get it back. But no, Semien's been unreal. Just to compare the start that he had, I pulled up his splits. In April, he hit .211 with 5 homers. That was pretty much one of the only things he was doing the first couple of weeks of the season. He did come up with some pretty clutch home runs in the month of April that led to wins, but since May has come, 8 homers, 22 RBI, and a .368 batting average. I'm just looking at some of the more basic stuff there, but that's all you need to know. The rest is unreal. His numbers have been insane, and it feels like every game recently you can count on Semien for at least 2 hits. And when you have that at the top of your lineup, it's going to be so interesting to see where Springer does get placed if Semien's keeping this up, because remember, he started as a leadoff guy, struggled. Springer came back, they demoted him, and then Cavan was up there for a little while when Springer went back in the IL, and then Semien got back up there as he continued to hit, and he's just run away with it. So it's a good problem to have, and my God, if they can have 2 of the top 3 most valuable hitters in baseball the rest of the year, or even if they finish both in the top 10 and maybe Bo gets a little closer, I don't know how you can't make the playoffs at that time if you have that stacked of an offense.
Yeah, that's enough to carry any team, regardless of pitching. It's just how it is at this point. But Corsair, run with it.
Yeah, I was a bit apprehensive about signing Semien when we did in the offseason, only because I thought that the onus should have been on the pitching, which I still do. And I was a little uncomfortable giving $18 million to a player for 1 year when we should have, in my opinion, used that to load up on the starting pitching staff. In a way, I still feel that way because this lineup is just mashing, but I don't know that this team would be nearly as successful as it has been, especially within the month of May, if it wasn't for Marcus Semien. It's gotten me to the point, and I put this in our private chat, text chat, and I'll disclose it here in the on the podcast and live stream. It's gotten me to the point where if the Blue Jays wanted to extend him now for 3 years, $20 million a year, let's do it. Let's do it now. Let's not even bother exploring the free agent market of shortstops and try to flip-flop Bo Bichette somewhere. Let's just ignore all that and say, hey, here's our lineup. Bo Bichette's our shortstop, who has been improving since opening day. And Marcus Semien's your second baseman. Let's just call it a day. We can run with that for the next 3 years. And if they do that, I'm okay with them unloading Cavan Biggio for some starting pitching. I'm going to say it right here.
Freak out, Jaybird watching fans. Freak out.
I'm okay with it. Because you know what? Look, I'm at the point where, Panic has been playing third base, and that's fine. I think Espinal right now is the best third baseman on the team. I'm just going to say, I think defensively, he's the best third baseman on the team. Shortstop is figured out for as much as it can be with Bo. They seem to want to keep him there, which is fine. Like I said, Semien at second base, Vlad at first. The outfield will be straightened out, especially when George Springer comes back. Catching needs a little help, but whatever. Reese McGuire has actually been pretty serviceable. How can you not like this team? And I'm not saying Kevin Biggio is disposable, but he kind of is disposable when you look at the lineup right now and what they're doing without him. So, in closing, I think Semien has been freaking amazing. Month of May, what'd you say, Brendan? 368 he was hitting? That's ridiculous. That is utterly, that's not sustainable, but I do think he'll be hovering around 280 to 300 for the rest of the year, and I think that's pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
So just to throw it out there, not only was he batting 368, 12 doubles, 8 home runs, and 22 RBIs. And then Brendan's favorite stat, going to the Sabermetrics fund, his OPS was 1.131.
Yeah,
that is an ungodly amount of Sabermetrics fun. So, and pleasing the old school and the new school as far as stats goes. And I just can't believe he had that many extra base hits. I think that right there is the part that's the really telling part.
How many doubles did you say again? 12?
12 doubles.
12, yeah.
And so that with 8 homers, there's 20 right there. And then, did he have a triple or 2?
He had 1 triple.
As I say, I think there was 1 in
21.
there.
21 extra base hits in a month. That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah,
that'll be hard to replicate moving forward, but he got off to a good start the first 2 days of June already.
Ridiculous.
If anybody can even put up that kind of numbering for the rest of the season is insane, or even for a whole month like this. This is just sustained awesomeness is really what it comes down to. And if I'm with you on this one, Adam, and I'm pretty sure Brendan's thinking the same thing, if you lock Semien up and keep him on this team, you have an embarrassment of riches, and Kevin Biggio might be the one that is the unfortunate trade chip in the midst of that equation. But in all reality, that could be getting us somebody that would actually fill in for third base, because as much as I love Santiago Espinal playing third base defensively, he is basically the equivalent of Reese McGuire batting right now. He's had some key hits. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. He has actually been quite salvageable, but he's I'll make this old school comment. He's basically the same as having Alex Gonzalez. He played good defense for the Blue Jays, but he couldn't hit. Or any of the other, embarrassment of middle infielders and whatnot we've had over the years that were defense first and then couldn't hit. Nori Kawasaki, John McDonald, whoever it might be.
The GOAT, John McDonald.
The GOAT. Yes. I had to say Johnny Mac, otherwise, just slide that Angry Bird reference in there for Johnny Mac. So
Providence College, man. The GOAT.
So it's almost Father's Day. We'll see those highlights again. Just saying.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah, it's true.
Look, I agree with you when it comes to Santiago Espinal. He's not great in terms of hitting, but when you have a lineup that's mashing the way this is, that's mitigated, right? And that's what we were hoping for when it came to Danny Jansen. If Danny Jansen could just bat ninth and sort of hide those flaws on the offense, and everyone else is hitting, you'll take that. And at this point, if you have, Danny Jansen or Reese McGuire and Santiago Espinal, especially when George Springer comes back, you can hide those flaws, especially if the defense is more than serviceable with him at third.
I agree.
Very much so, because as far as it goes, you'll get the defensive runs saved, and that is very key to baseball. I agree with you that having, over the past few years, we've had 2 or 3 guys that can't hit their weight in batting order. So having 1 guy, not a big deal. 2, no big deal, but it will be interesting to see where this conversation goes, because I think you'll get some good bats for Kevin Biggio right now, rotating through second or the outfield a little bit here and whatnot to get Joe Panic in, Espinal, however you juggle that. But once George Springer comes back, and finally does come back, guys, this is going to be a rather congested lineup, as we were saying. That's a great problem to have, because this offense is only going to get that much more scary when we are already in the top 5 in most offensive categories in Major League Baseball, or at least top 10. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's slightly ridiculous for what they were saying. And I believe, I can't remember what they were saying, but they said the other night that I think Vlad Jr., as far as things go, was the first Blue Jay since Jose Bautista in 2015 to be leading the majors in home runs this late in the season. So
yeah,
That was a slightly ridiculous piece too, and I'm going to use that as segue points to go to our next part here. There's only a couple people that were better than Vladimir Guerrero Jr. in the month of May in baseball. Period. Marcus Semien being one of them. So if you were making your All-Star team for the month of May, Vlad and Semien are taking up the whole right side of that infield, which is pretty damn impressive. And that is just slightly ridiculous to the point that we even are having that kind of conversation with what we've been trucking out over the last few years. So, to that point, Vlad at this point is pretty much I would say, flag holder for running away with the first baseman's job at the All-Star game. Anybody want to even contest on that fact? I can't even think of another first baseman in Major League Baseball that's really having a better year than Vlad Jr.
No, not even close.
I think the next closest person stat-wise was Max Muncy for the Dodgers.
Yeah.
And it was still a pretty good step back. So
I'm just looking at it right now. Yeah, Muncy, Matt Olson is the next closest, but Vlad has him doubled in the F4 category. Matt Olson's at 1.8.
Yeah. Does it say what Vlad's actual WAR is for the season so far? Because I feel like his defense is actually full on legitimizing the fact that he's not just an offensive force, because he has been one of he's got to be in the top 10 for the first baseman defensively, I think, this year too.
He's number one in WAR. 3.5.
You got it.
There you go.
I'm looking at just seeing if I can order this quick enough to bring it up.
Put Brendan on the spot.
Click
faster.
Or whatever Fangraphs measurement for that is. Vlad is 10th at negative 3.2. And to put that into context, there's only one first baseman with higher than 0, which is 0.1, and that's DJ LeMahieu. So, yeah.
Has he played that many games even to freaking qualify as a first baseman?
Yeah.
I assume that he's played the majority of his games at first base because Luke Voigt and whatnot's been hurt for the Yankees. But I was just curious.
Yeah. So he's
Didn't Jay Bruce retire?
There is that. We do not have to worry about our Blue Jays ever being in a Jay Bruce conversation ever again. Although I'm very shocked that AA didn't get his man and he became an Atlanta Brave just for the shit and giggle of it here right before he retires.
I don't want to make contract. We'll just make it
just to make it fun, but good stuff. But monster performances from those two gentlemen right at the top of our lineup. So just because we have been talking about the eventual lineup change here a little bit, gentlemen, I want to get your take. Right now, this lineup has been completely mashing for the month of May with Semien, Bichette, Vladdy, Teoscar, and then more or less whoever after that point. Randall Grichuk has really stepped.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. And we'll get to him and his awesome performance over the last week here, or at least last night anyways, so shortly. But are you wanting to really mess with that when Springer does inevitably come back? Or is this Semien can hit no matter where we put him in the lineup?
No, I'm putting Springer at 1 and I'm moving everybody else down 1.
I agree. Yes, I'm with you there.
I'm in the I don't want to break. It's not. Maybe I'm the weird engineer that I don't fuck with things that aren't working as it is. So I'm kind of in that ballpark here. Like I'm like, it's not broke right now. Don't fix it. And I let Springer's bat start playing a little bit and then move him back up to the line. I want him back in the leadoff spot. But right now, I just don't want to see that. Semien's just crushing it. So unless he goes into a slump between now and when Springer comes back, I don't want to fuck with it. I really don't.
No, I'm with you. If anything, everybody gets pushed down 1, or Bo moves down a little bit to keep Semien 2 spot and keep Vlad at 3rd, and then maybe go Teoscar 4 and then Bo Bichette 5. Just because in Blue Jays Twitter, it catches on like wildfire when somebody makes a point that Bo always seems to find himself in no 2 count, and then everybody started tweeting about that last night, and I thought, he always seems to find himself in a no 2 count. So he's not the greatest table setter for Vlad, which is why I would rather Semien there and Springer above him, so that when Vlad comes up, there's a pretty decent chance, more often than not, there's at least going to be 1 runner on base. And not taking away from Bo's season, he's done well. He's had himself a nice season, but there's still some flaws where he could be dropped in the order and add pop a little lower down in the 5th or 6th spot. So yeah, I'm probably going Springer 1, Semien 2, Vlad 3, Teoscar 4, and then the rest they can figure out.
Now that I'm fine with.
I respectfully disagree, man. I want to keep, if anything, I'm flipping Teoscar and Vladdy. I think Vladdy's the only guy that you can mess with where it just doesn't matter where you put him.
His approach right now does spell that.
Doesn't matter. Like it obviously you don't want him at the top of the lineup. Just if he's at 5, I'm okay with that. I'd rather have Vladdy at 5 than Bo, only because I really like the way they pitch to Semien with Bo behind him. I really like the way that Semien is getting all these fastballs. And
is that going to change now? He won an award, though.
Dude, I don't know why they keep doing it, but it's...
It's like, why do they keep pitching to Vlad? Last night was the first time somebody finally got smart, and it was because it only made actual baseball sense.
Dude, I don't... That's why I'm saying, like, I think Vladimir Guerrero Jr. right now is on such hot fire that he'll hit anything. And if you put Teoscar in the 4 spot and you just switch those two, so you have Springer, Semien, Bichette, Teoscar, Vladdy, and the rest just whatever. I think you could do a lot worse. I know you're sort of sacrificing not having Vladdy bat in the first inning, which might work to their detriment. But at the same time, you should have confidence with those first 4 to not get out of the inning really quick, right? And if you have that kind of firepower 1 through 5, you could do a whole lot worse, and that's just putting it lightly. That's just my
whole lot
preference.
worse to the tune of 5 guys that are gonna probably have 100 RBIs by the end.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like I don't necessarily disagree with having Bo at 5th, but I think that the adjustment for him and the passion that he plays with, he probably would be more vocal against that. And I feel like Vladdy would just be like, "What the fuck ever, man? I'll hit wherever." I just think Bo would be pissed.
I can see Bo taking that offensively, but I just can't. I can't move Vlad out of the top 3 because that's usually will end up being 1 less at bat than everybody else, and he needs to have as many as possible. So I totally understand like what you mean in terms of it doesn't matter where it does, but it also doesn't with those top 5. That just speaks to how good the Blue Jays lineup is. But he has to stay in the top 3.
Okay.
To some of our Twitter followers and whatnot, they don't see the whole hype about Springer having to be a leadoff guy. We've talked about this on a couple of other shows. I just want to make sure we're talking to our fans and whatnot here, like we usually do on the show. So it's a comfort thing, right? Springer has just, I believe there was actually some stats to back this up, that he has been throughout his career, especially with the Astros and whatnot, that he is actually better in the leadoff spot statistically versus anywhere else in the lineup. I feel like I remember reading that at one point before the spring, the spring training started. Does anybody else recall anything like that, or why it is so kind of like, or as they put it, is it a religion that he has to be batting in the leadoff spot?
I don't know if there's any. I'm sure there are statistical reasons why, and he just performs better. But I think the name of the game here in reality is he's the highest paid Blue Jay of all time. And you signed him saying you're going to be able to do whatever you want. And if George Springer comes in here and says, "Hey, I'm the leadoff guy," he's the leadoff guy. Period. End of story.
I'm pretty sure he said that's where he wants to be. So exactly. If that's what he asked for, you do it.
For all we know, it's written in his contract.
Yeah.
Did any of the Twitter commenters say where they would have him bat? Because the only other logical spot in my mind, you could put him 3 or 4 is 2. And right now, it doesn't matter if you have Semien 1 and Springer 2 or Springer 1, Semien 2. Like, they're both going to get on base and set the table for the rest of the order.
Yeah. So it was more of a general comment of why everybody's kind of so focused on the fact that he needs to be a leadoff spot, and in the fact that his power does play well down in the lineup. It would potentially drive in more runs. But I guess this even kind of falls back into the Blue Jays' old concept in 2015-16, Josh Donaldson batting second.
Yeah.
So it's kind of in that same ballpark.
Yeah. It's so fascinating lineup construction because everybody is always very traditional 3-4 are your big boppers, but now you're seeing more and more your best hitters are batting second. And whether that's because they get an extra at bat usually per game than 3 or 4 guys, that seems to be the reason. But yeah, I set 2-hole, doesn't matter. If he's there, that's fine. If he's leadoff, that's fine too. Semien, wherever. Totally cool.
Yeah, because if you're looking old school on this whole thing, the conversation, to me at least, Semien and Bichette scream 2-hole hitter. just normal, as somebody that can play with their, they're aggressive, they can hit the ball hard, and they play the gaps well. Both of them just happen to hit the ball a lot harder than just gap baseball, but they get on base in a hell of a clip, and they hit the ball hard. So you're going to get that on base before you get your 3-4 guy. Then if you have somebody like Springer, who just is going to uncork probably 15 or so of his home runs right out of the leadoff spot, hey, that's extra runs. You're putting those pitchers on the opposing team right on their heels right off the back of the beginning of a game. That's pretty intimidating for especially a young pitcher coming out and going, oh shit, I have to face Springer, Semien or Bichette, Vlad, and Teoscar in my first 5. When do I get a break? Oh wait, you play in the American League, you don't.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that with the way they're hitting right now, you just don't want to mess with anything, and I'm under the understanding that it's going to have to be Springer at number 1 for the team's sake. Maybe statistically or whatever, you can measure it out, and it doesn't necessarily have to do that. If you can, spit out some numbers that show that you have better hitters to lead off, which I'm sure it's possible, and I'm sure that there's some data to support it. But I'm with Brendan. Where else are you going to hit him? Because I just don't find it comfortable having them hit 2 or 3. I really don't, especially because then that does mess more with not just Bo and Vladdy and Teoscar, but with Semien. Like, now you're creating more problems, whereas you just put him at 1, bump everyone down. Mm-hmm. It's easier that way, right? And the approach for those hitters like Semien, like Bo, should be the same. It should be. And I guess at that point, if you'd rather put Bo later in the lineup, as you said, Brendan, just so Vladdy can get there, maybe you can make that work. But I just think the easy way out of this, just bump everyone down. Just
there you go.
Makes it easy.
Yeah, I'm with you for sure.
So, fellas, now that we've beaten that horse, let's dive into the Cleveland Indians series here, as the Blue Jays were able to take 2 out of 3 against the Indians, and what was a pretty good series, except for some late inning roughness in the one game, kind of is, I guess, the best way to say it. But yeah, what were your guys' takeaways from the Cleveland Indians series? And I believe it's your turn to go first, Mr. Corsair.
They should.
Come on, go out with it.
It wasn't as bad as I necessarily thought it was going to be. I'll put it that way. They just should have won that last game.
Yeah.
That
had sweep written all over it.
Yeah. Again, makes me question the bullpen decisions. But like, who was it? Dolis that pitched the end of game 1, or was it Romano?
Romano.
Yeah.
Why? Like, at that point, why? It wasn't a save situation. Why are you doing it? And
it seemed it screams misuse, right?
They did the same thing in the Miami game, didn't they? The first game?
I can't remember. I'd have to look back at that.
I just feel like Charlie is just mishandling this bullpen, and it's costing us games. And I understand, like, a lot of it is not necessarily his decision. He's got a piece of paper that's telling him what to do. So we all know how the game is played right now. But yeah, I think we all predicted 2 out of 3, which is fine. But that last game was just frustrating to watch.
So the first game they win 11-2. To the point that you were mentioning, they started the Sunday doubleheader with a 4-1 win, and then they lost 5-6 in the last inning, basically. Yes. And in the midst of that, it was Tyler Chatwood that ended up giving up the big, couple runs. But guys, I can't blame Chatwood completely when we were just talking about what, to Adam's point here, the fact that we more or less, shot the good bullets in the first game for a 4-1 win to ensure that one win. I felt like Chatwood probably should have been the one that was in on that game at the end. Not
probably.
Game one, right?
Correct.
Yes, I agree. Like I said, you're using up your bullets for the first game, which is more or less in the bag. You should have just saved that, right? If you're up 4-1 at the end of a 7-inning game, you save that and know that it might be a little closer for the next game. And if not, if the Blue Jays are blowing it away, you can this team loves to rest. You'll have that guy on 2 days rest now, right? And you'll have him for the Miami game. So at that point, I don't understand it. It wasn't a situation in which Romano needed to be out there for the first game.
No, he didn't need to be. That's true. And then you can look at the other way. It's like, why couldn't he have pitched the end of game 2 either? Like, we just saw Liam Hendricks a couple days prior get 2 saves in the same day and go out there and pitch. There'd be nothing wrong with that. And there have been pitchers over the last couple of years when doubleheaders come around that do get both save opportunities, especially considering you had Monday off and now you have today off. And the bullpen was just coming off of a record amount of games in a row of playing 7 innings. It's the most rested the bullpen has been for probably since opening day. So it is kind of crazy that Romano didn't get the second game too. However, when I look at Tyler Chatwood's season, other than that Rays game, and this is before he imploded against the Indians, other than the Rays game, he's probably been their best reliever from start to finish. And when Charlie took him out of the game against Tampa, before any damage was actually done against him, he was upset.
Yes.
So Charlie puts him back out there in this situation, and Chatwood loads the bases again and does the exact same thing, but Charlie lets him finish it this time. So now, like, I'm not saying Charlie was trying to prove a point or anything, but at the same time, he's trying to trust him. He probably heard Chatwood that time against Tampa say, man, let me get out of it. I'll get out of it. And if he didn't, he didn't. And he would have been taken out early in that Cleveland game. But Charlie heard him. He trusted that, hey, it's just one bad outing this guy's had for me all year. He's been one of my best. So let's see if he can get out of it this time. And he didn't. So now he's going to have a shorter leash because that's 2 rocky outings in the span of a week or so. So I get it's totally on Charlie Montoyo, that loss on Sunday. But I just don't get the absolute hate and fire that everybody had after that game because while I was upset, I mean, that's the first thing I thought of. I thought of, yeah, he was upset he got pulled without actually giving up any damage against Tampa. Exact same situation. Instead of coming out to pull him for a second time in a row, Charlie's like, okay, you yelled at me last time and you wanted to stay in, so now you're staying in. Get out of it. And if you don't, your lease is now shorter. So, yeah, maybe he was trying to prove something. Maybe he's a little proud or just wanted to be like, okay, well, you're getting a shorter leash now. I don't know. But, yeah, they should have won that game. I agree. But still nice to take 2 out of 3 from Cleveland.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I hope the manager of the team isn't that petty.
I know,
that to me is a fireable offense, but whatever. Being petty, not necessarily the bullpen moves. Like, I understand there's probably a reason for it. But you're right, like putting Dolis and Romano in the first game, and it didn't need it, right? Both those players are capable of closing out a game. So to use both of them at once, I understand you're chasing wins here, but I mean, Cleveland's a team you should be beating up on, and for the most part, they did, right? Let's not take.
They did the job right. They happened to pour all their offense into that one game, and they happened to put it together. Yeah. To a few of our Twitter followers already saying they can't hit. Why are we? This shouldn't have even been a part of the conversation. So they carry themselves on all their pitching. To your point, Adam.
Yeah, and I'm willing to excuse this, but I guess the problem I have is when you listen to Montoyo post game, there is no concrete, robust reason for it, right? It's just cliches. And I understand that he can't say, oh, because this is what upper management is telling me to do with this, piece of paper that I got faxed in. That's how it is. It's a game of telephone, right? It's not old school Montoyo is, guessing and thinking sort of, I don't want to say critically, but critiquing the game and having some sort of strategy here. It's more of, this is the situation that calls for this specific pitcher, and when this specific pitcher hits this many pitches or gets into trouble, we have this specific pitcher to go to. It's very, very, very linear. It's no longer strategic. So in a way, you can't blame Montoyo, but obviously all the blame is going to be going on him because he's, the face of the person that makes the decision on TV.
Yeah, I hear you on that one, but I wonder how much of that equation was the fact that Ross Stripling actually pitched well, and they're like, okay, well, we somehow had good luck at the beginning of this game. We better hurry up and nail this thing down.
Yeah, that could be.
I don't know. I just had to make the joke, but props to Ross Stripling for actually having a good outing. Got through 5 innings and only gave up 1 earned run. So that is the best outing pretty much for him so far this season, I think. So
Yeah.
You have Joe Payants in there. Just use him. God damn it.
I think with a 4-1 lead, they could have used anybody. Is really what it comes down to, especially with the way all this stuff fell with the off days and the rain out and all this other stuff. The bullpen was actually rested for the first time since opening day, guys.
Yeah, totally.
So it was a little weird to see them just trucking the same old faces out there when they pretty much had it. The way I would have loved to see it happen is, okay, let's say you did use Delise just to get through the meat of that actual lineup there for a second, get by Jose Ramirez and company is what that ended up happening, right? That last inning, just throw somebody out there. If you got in trouble, and then bring in Romano.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress. Anybody? Go on.
I don't know if you guys think this way, but after seeing the way Cleveland plays, I know they have a great pitching staff, but I'm not scared of them no more going into the series. I was a little nervous that, this is a team that we have to win at least 2 out of 3, 4 just to keep pace with in the wild card spot. I don't think that they can continue this level of production the entire season. So I'm way less scared of Cleveland after the series. I know it helps that we won 2 out of 3, but moving forward, they might still hang around. But as the season goes along, they just seem to me like a team that'll fade out of it.
I think it might have been on MLB Network that morning of the game, but they were talking about how statistically wise the Indians have had the easiest schedule in all of baseball to start the season. And it's because they have played the Orioles a bunch of times. They have played the Twins, who have not been Twins.
Twins have been terrible.
The Tigers all of a sudden just finally found out how to turn it on against the Yankees. Thank you, Tigers. But they have been horrible. That division in baseball is not anything what anybody expected. So to see the Indians all of a sudden run off with it was not shocking because they have enough pitching to really anchor it down in their, starting rotation and in their bullpen. But if they can't hit outside of Jose Ramirez, we saw what this is the Indians, I think, that we saw this weekend. They're going to sprinkle in enough offense on certain days, but other days their pitching better keep them in ball games. So 100%. To your point, I think you're 100% accurate, and we have to deal with our division, I think, for all those wild card spots. So to everybody that doesn't think the American League East isn't any good anymore, the Blue Jays are in current fourth place. Fourth place with a 29-25 record, 4.5 games behind the ridiculous cliff that the Tampa Bay Rays have been putting on lately.
Yeah, you could crown Tampa Bay right now in my mind. The Red Sox still have had an easy schedule too, and the Yankees offense, while they have some big pieces, have not nearly been as good as they're kind of like, in a way, they're kind of like Cleveland, where their offense is kind of centered around 1, maybe 2 guys tops, and the rest is just kind of struggling like crazy. It's their pitching that's been keeping the Yankees in it. But yeah, it'll be between Boston, New York, Toronto, and then probably the Astros. Yeah. And that's who we play next.
Yeah, exactly. So, and then I depending on what happens in the Central, I might say that the White Sox are tipping on that point too, but I think they're going to all of a sudden catch fire and take the division.
They'll win the division.
Oh, I think they're going to run away with it. Yeah, dude.
I think that's really surprising me in baseball. Period. Is when the hell did the Kansas City Royals all of a sudden become relevant again?
They got a good young team, dude. They really do.
Watching Andrew Benintendi play this weekend was just pissing me off.
Yeah, dude. I wish we got him.
Moves, man.
So
but
to that point, our outfield's kind of stocked right now, so I think that's going to work out all right. So, anyways, to that point, the Blue Jays are only a game and a half out of a wild card spot. The problem is there's about 8 teams in that conversation right now. So, moving along, let's talk about the return to Buffalo before we talk about the actual games against the Miami Marlins, boys. Did either of you see that video about the Blue Jays' new accommodations at Sahlen Field and how it's slightly ridiculous? I've been in that ballpark many a time, and I've actually been in the lower levels of that ballpark. It was a rat hole before. It was just slightly ridiculous. I love that ball. Yeah, exactly. Just ask the Yankees. And now they even got some new digs. So how impressed were you guys with seeing that? Because it looks like they're literally just full on carrying the culture throughout the Blue Jays minor league system now. And I think a lot of that's the fact that the Blue Jays are actually the Blue Jays minor league system, basically, as far as venue is concerned this moment. But I just couldn't believe the fact that anybody, when the Bisons inevitably come back to this, it's going to be good to have minor league baseball back in Buffalo eventually, with them playing in this facility that has gotten a clear major league upgrade. And I think it's very impressive that the Blue Jays organization was able to pull this off. And I heard that the city of Buffalo actually even somehow chipped in, I think, on the lighting, which Brendan, come on, I know you want to talk about the lighting.
It wasn't great before, that's for sure.
Sure as shit. And now it's got celebrations.
Yeah, it's so cool. It is so cool. That light show is awesome. Keep on seeing it. Reminds me of football, because there are a bunch of football teams that do something similar during night games for whenever there's touchdowns. But all those renovations that they've done, last year it looked pretty good for the short amount of time that they had, but this year that shit looks permanent, man. Like, I was watching that video, I'm like, there's no way they're coming back to Toronto this year with all that work that they've done. I know they say they want to, and I'm sure they do, but at the same time, it's just like, that's something like, if the border isn't open by what we've said, the All-Star break or 4th of July, which is when they've committed to playing in Buffalo, because they go out on the road and then it's the All-Star break. If the border isn't open or there's still some uncertainty, just finish the season there with all the money you've put in there. Players clearly loved it because everybody's been speaking so highly of it, and the fans have been really good. It's actually nice hearing fans cheer for the Blue Jays for a change.
How exciting was that part last night?
Yeah, that was awesome. It got me pumped up on Tuesday, and it's so cool that we kind of had like a second home opener in a way. Just imagine if they come back to Toronto, they'll have 3 home openers in a year.
There you go.
Right. So no, it's awesome. It really is. And I know it's never going to happen, but seeing all that stuff and how permanent it looks, like, shit, they really are going to steal our baseball team from Toronto.
They're going to steal a Major League Baseball team. And damn well better not be our Blue Jays. As much as I would love to have them 5 feet down the street, there is something about going to the big city and, catching a Major League Baseball game. And Buffalo ain't much bigger than where I'm at, an hour, to the east in Rochester, New York. But Adam, what did you see during any of these video things that really stood out to you about the fact that the more or less the Blue Jays have a real home here?
Yeah. A couple things I want to know on this, and it all sort of intertwines. First of all, the upgrades look incredible. I love the strobe light effect, and Brendan, you touched on it. I thought that was dope as shit when I saw it. I was just, this is perfect. It's, I love the foghorn that the Roger Setner does. It's fun, and I'm glad they're still sort of doing that too. But the strobe show is just, it's a nice touch.
Could I have called that any better last night? I want to see a light show, and it was like the 5th inning.
Yeah, dude. It was great. It was great. The upgrades they made to the facilities are great. If you watch that video, all the home Blue Jay stuff, they pan on it for a good 5 seconds. But the visiting stuff, they're like, and this is the pitch, and
it's better than a 10.
Quick. It's super quick. So they did the bare minimum, which is great. You should do that for your visitor club. The Bisons are going to be spoiled for years on out if this stuff stays.
They're going to feel like major leaguers when they finally come back. It's going to be very interesting.
You should treat your minor league players that way. And I think this is a nice accidental step forward for the Blue Jays to be treating their AAA team like they're actually legitimate MLB-ready players. And that's how they should be treated.
Do you think the Fisher Cats are going, what the fuck, where's our upgrade? Even though they just got a brand new ballpark in the last 10 years, too.
I mean, there's a whole tale there. Speaking of, Austin Martin just hit his first home run in tonight's game. So shout out to Austin Martin.
Nice.
More to your point, Brendan, I do think that they're going to finish the regular season in Buffalo. You don't make these upgrades and spend that kind of money just for a couple of months. I do think that this is going to be up until the end of September. If and when they make the playoffs, I have a strange feeling that they're going to make it back to Toronto for 2 reasons. One, you can't play in a AAA ballpark for the playoffs. I'm sorry. If in the off chance that you have a home field advantage, that has nothing against the city of Buffalo. Nothing at all. You just can't play in a AAA ballpark. And I know that ballpark was supposedly supposed to be maybe a major league team when they constructed it. It was supposed maybe an expansion and it just ended up being a AAA team.
It's allegedly going to be the Rays at one point. It was the expansion before that. It was the Rockies Marlins era. Is when that ballpark was. Yeah. Okay.
But still, at the end of the day, it's still a AAA ball club. So I just personally don't want to see it. If worst comes to worst, maybe. But I'm looking on Twitter right now, and I didn't realize this because I don't really follow hockey. So fellow Canadian, well, not fellow, other Canadian fans out there, forgive me. But I'm reading this on the CBC News from Twitter. The federal government is poised to approve a travel exemption for the Stanley Cup playoffs that would allow U.S. teams to enter Canada. That's a really big step forward now, and obviously things are going to improve when it comes to vaccinations and whatnot. If come October things are better, there's no reason why the Blue Jays couldn't do the same at the Rogers Center. There's no reason. If there's a bubble or whatever, we figured out the science, we figured out how to handle this, we figured out how to mitigate these issues. I have a feeling if and when the Blue Jays make the playoffs, they're playing up north. And how awesome would that be?
Best ticket in town.
Dude, imagine game one. If they were home for hosting a playoff series and the first game back in Toronto with
chills.
full crowd capacity was a playoff game?
Wild card game.
Yeah, dude. I feel bad for those opponents. Good luck. Good luck.
As far as that goes, too, it's to Brendan's point of opening day. You're having an opening day on a playoff game.
A playoff game.
Slightly nuts. Unheard of.
Yeah. That would be nuts.
Yeah, bat flip situation when the game starts.
Yeah. Canada Day, I think, would be the only thing that would make that place erupt harder.
Yep.
But for a playoff game, I mean, you were there with the bat flip, dude. I bet you the volume and intensity would probably
be higher than that.
With probably half the people, too.
Yep.
So that same level of intensity, just half the people. Because here's the fun part. Let's say that, they were able to still do only 35% or something like that, just for sake of argument, at the Rogers Center. 35% at the Rogers Center is still more than 65% at the Sahlen Field.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just math. I'm sorry. It's a 47,000 seat venue versus a 16,000 seat venue.
Yeah, dude. I'm with you.
Not to mention Thunderdome.
Yeah. You don't make these upgrades just for a temporary thing, which is fine. And I wish I could go, Craig. I'm slightly jealous that
I can't go
you
anyway.
have the ability when tickets are more readily available for you to be there. I see pictures. Craig, you and I are huge Bills fans. Buffalo is representing this team. Like, it is now official that the Blue Jays are Buffalo's baseball team.
Agreed. 100%.
It's segmenting the area even over here in Rochester, because there's people making the road trip back and forth, and it's interesting to see the fandom getting shaken around here, which has been more or less cemented in Yankees lore and Mets fans for the most part, with a good sprinkling and a good helping of Red Sox fans, just because they've been one of the more prevalent teams in baseball over the last, basically 2 decades, right? And in the fact that the Blue Jays were not relevant for all that time, unfortunately. So it's very cool to see that. I've been seeing more and more and more Blue Jays hats, especially with younger kids. How can they not fall in love with this team? They're in their backyard. You got guys like Bo and Vlad just literally having the time of their lives. It is very, very interesting to see that whole thing changing here in Western New York. And there's no way in hell the Blue Jays can ever leave Buffalo now as a minor league team. It just can't happen. It is full on cemented in Western New York-isms now. Especially if they do something extra this year with Blue Jays fans in the stands here for the playoff push and into the playoffs. If that happens, there is a lifelong market here for the Toronto Blue Jays in Buffalo, which in all reality is an hour and a half, 2-hour drive. It's not bad. There's plenty of people that come down to Buffalo all the time, and vice versa. So once the border comes back open, you have a full-on thing that the Bills were trying to do for a decade. Trying to steal Canadian fans, to your towel comment about the Rogers Center games. So the Bills played a home season game at the Rogers Center every year for 5 years in a row. 5 years in a row. It was supposed to be 8. They cut it short. But none of those ever felt like home games for the Bills. Ever. I went to one of them. I had a great damn time from what I remember. But it was still never a home game for them. These are legit home games for the Blue Jays in Buffalo until probably those Yankees games.
Yeah, definitely. And maybe that's another reason why they wouldn't be in a rush to leave, because they could continue to grow the fan base a little bit more during the course of the year. And it's a nice way to thank the city. As much as I want them back here, because that would mean that, man, almost everything is ready to go back to pre-pandemic life. I wouldn't mind driving the hour and a bit to get to a game at Sahlen Field if I can go. If the border's open, hell yeah, I'll go for a weekend in August and a weekend in September.
Meet you there,
Sign me
buddy.
up.
Even if I can't get into the damn game, we can hang out at Pearl Street or the 716 and get drunk and watch the game and hear the chanting from down the street. To the Twitter fandom here, apparently we have enough people listening tonight that know at least about the Bills' tailgating isms and asked when are the table dives going to start?
Playoffs.
Playoffs. Give me a tailgate party. I'm begging for a tailgate party right now. So,
or if they clinch the division, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think a wild card berth would get it done. But if the Blue Jays were to clinch the division, I think Buffalo fans would represent.
If I'm a Blue Jays bat boy, I am literally doing a table dive on the field if they clinch in Buffalo.
Yo, we need some Blue Jays Zubas stuff.
Yeah, what the hell? Come on. They have all the Buffalo Blue Jays stuff.
Who's the company that makes those Buffalo Blue Jay shirts? 26 shirts or something like that?
26 shirts was the one that was the big one that was put out. There was a bunch of them that are picking back up again that maybe we can tweet a couple of them after the show and hear if we can get a real sponsorship back again.
Yeah. And recommend tweet at them and say, hey, let's get some Blue Jays themed Zubas.
Yeah, I know, right? That'd be awesome. They wouldn't ironically look terribly different than Bills. Zubas.
Just remove the red.
Just put a new logo on the top.
Just slap a Blue Jays logo on and I'll buy it. I don't care.
There it is. So, to the point of slapping, that's basically what we just did to the Marlins over the last 2 days, boys. To what you had mentioned earlier, the Bills tweeting out "Squish the Fish" with the Blue Jays Twitter account. Good fun stuff as sports go, but it was a very impressive 2-game home return for the Toronto Blue Jays here. As we had mentioned, the fans were in full swing. It felt like a home game. But the Blue Jays actually did a great job of producing in their wonderful home away from home, it seems like. What was the big things that stood out to you, Mr. Panikar, about those first 2 games? And if it's just something as simple as they do feel like they have that home all of a sudden. I really don't care. Run away with it.
No, I'm pretty sure it's the latter of what you just said. On Blue Jays Central, they had Reese McGuire on before yesterday's game, and he did say how much of a boost that they all felt and commented about in the clubhouse, especially when Robbie Ray opened up the first inning with 3 strikeouts and how loud the crowd got and actual cheers. Reese did admit that was definitely a huge boost that they did not get down in Dunedin. So the fact they're playing in front of a largely pro Blue Jays crowd is definitely an advantage. Ray, hey, look, he pitched well on Tuesday. And you know what? I know we might dive into Manoah a little bit, but maybe we'll just start it now. Yeah, he got touched up a little bit, but there's still a lot of encouraging things that I saw. The fastball, he's got his fastball down pat. His fastball command's great, and that was his pitch that was working yesterday. And for a young guy, your off-speed stuff is always the one that takes most time to develop. Mm-hmm. And for a guy who has not had much time to develop since he's been drafted in 2019, he can still get it across for strikes. It was all about mislocation for Alek Manoah yesterday with his stuff. So worried? No. He'll definitely make his next start unless something goes completely wrong for the next 2-3 starts. I don't even think it's a consideration that he will be sent down anytime soon. So rough, yes. That was going to happen at some point, but nothing I'm concerned about. And there were still some bright spots. So the pitching was good. I don't know about you guys, but I did watch before I turned the game off. I'll admit, after they didn't score any, I missed the comeback. I went to bed. Extremely happy.
You didn't get my tweets about light show.
But I don't know about you guys, but I just have a strange feeling that the Carl Edwards Jr. pickup is going to pay off really nicely for this team because he's been a really good reliever in the past. And I mean, like, for a reliever to have at least a 1 F4 in seasons, that means you've had a really good season. And he had quite a few of those with the Cubs. I know he's a few seasons removed from that, but he still has the stuff. It just feels to me, I tweeted this out last night, it kind of feels like Joaquin Benoit, where you pick up a struggling guy that was on the brink of DFA'd. Carl Edwards Jr. was actually DFA'd. Picked him up. Pete Walker, he has another chance to work his magic, and I really feel that he's going to be a nice piece of this bullpen moving forward. And yeah, he got his Blue Jays career off to a nice start, and I loved him as a Cub, so I'm thrilled that he's a Blue Jay, and I'm excited to hopefully see him get his career back on track.
Yeah. Mr. Corsair, takeaways?
Obviously the comeback notwithstanding, because obviously that is probably on the forefront of everyone's mind when it comes to this series. the biggest thing that I want to take away with this is you're beating teams that you should beat.
Yep.
And you know, in the beginning in April, that was a thorn in the side of the Blue Jays, is that they were sort of falling to teams that they shouldn't have fallen to. Now, I'm not saying that teams like, you know, necessarily the Orioles or Detroit or even Miami that you should sweep 100% of the time. You're going to lose some of those games, just inevitable. But when you're taking advantage of opportunities and, you know, misplays and maybe some bad weather that was in the favor of the Blue Jays for that end of the game last night, take what you can get and run with them, because a W is a W. I was extremely impressed with Randall Grichuk. I mean, 2 home runs in a game, and he smashed them. I'm especially impressed with this team's first pitch approach. They are aggressive. For every first pitch, they are looking to hit.
They've all been drinking the Boba Fett Kool-Aid on the swing first.
Yep. Dude, I don't know what it is. I'm of the lineage that you wait on the first pitch. Most people just take them just to see what's being thrown at them. But Blue Jays are aggressive right off the bat. Sort of reminds me of that Atlanta game that we won where the Braves were super aggressive coming off. I think it was the first game of a doubleheader, or maybe it was the getaway game. I can't remember. But the Blue Jays ended up winning that one too. I just love their approach. I love the aggressiveness. Pitching, you know, it was okay. I mean, Manoah, obviously people were riding high on that debut game. Small sample size being what it is, we're expecting some growing pains coming into the big leagues. Gonna happen. He was definitely a little, I don't know. The confidence was there, and you can tell that he was disappointed in himself, but he held his head up when Payamps came in and got out of a jam.
Payamps was very impressive.
Yes, he was.
2 innings of work that night.
Very thankful. He was very thankful for that. This is a team, and they're playing like a team. They finally have a home to play in with some fans that are actually there to see them and cheering them on. It's really good to see. I can't say anything more about it. You got to love Vlad, got to love Grichuk, and Lourdes seems like he's coming alive too. So good 2-game series, and hopefully they can continue beating the teams that they should be beating.
Yeah. The first thing, and a couple people have also chimed in on this on the Twitter account too, the fact that the Blue Jays are carrying over to the Dunedin hitting style. Apo Taco, man.
Yes.
Could they really have taken any more advantage of that? I don't know what scouting reports the Marlins were looking at, but it clearly was not this year's scouting reports for the Toronto Blue Jays. Just peppering the ball to the right field, man. It was just impressive. Tons of bat control, and I want to say this is the hitting coaches, doing, but but I don't know if I can really, because this seems like a full-on philosophy for the team, period. They saw them doing those shifts, and they're like, you know what, fine, we'll take the singles. They didn't have any really monster hits those innings, but they just kept circling the bases to the tune of the Buffalo Bills, let's circle the wagons or circle the pillows instead. It's just how it is, but I thought it was very impressive to see that we all knew that, Bo and Vlad knew how to do that. But to see Teoscar over the last year basically becoming that guy and being able to put the ball where he wants during certain counts, or just he sees the ball on the opposite side of the plate and just taking it that way and not pulling it. You remember watching him strike out on how many pitches those first couple of years that he was a Blue Jay? Oh yeah. It was insane. So I thought that was very impressive, to the point that if that's how we had to win games, we didn't hit a home run in that second game, guys. That is not Blue Jay baseball, not hitting a home run for a win.
It was more frequent this year.
There was 2 triples in that game.
Yeah, Vlad triple. I was just about to say, he legged that out, dude.
Oh, he was looking like a train going around that. It was awesome.
What I say at the beginning of the season, I said, I am not convinced Vladdy is at shape unless he does a stand-up double. Dude had a fucking
stand-up triple.
Dude, stand-up double is in the rear view now. That's child's play. He had a triple. Good for you, Vlad.
He just heard you and wanted to make sure he not only beat you, but one-upped you at the same time.
Yes. Cool with me. I'll bring back the 637 starts.
And then, there it is. But to the point of that, too, he went 4 for 4 the night before. Blue Jays home opener in Buffalo goes 4 for 4 and puts the team on his back again. Freaking awesome. He was a triple away from the cycle, which, he was a night late. All right, I'm going to give it to him that for that series he hit a cycle. But very impressive to the fact that the Blue Jays put everything together on that whole series, I think. And then the typical Blue Jay resilience that we've seen over the last more or less calendar year, right? That there is just nothing but blue grit in this team, as the hashtag would say. And it's very intriguing to see that they are never out. They were trailing 2 runs going into the 9th inning last night, and not only came back to tie it, but actually walk it off in the 9th as well. And Bo Bichette had a very key triple in that as well, driving in 2 runs. And he looked like his hair was on fire in that just epic cape-like. So it was very impressive. Anything else that you guys would like to add about the Miami series?
Squish the fish.
No.
Yeah.
Squish the fish. So really quickly, guys, we're going to go into the Astros and White Sox series. I had the projected rotation up. I lost it. Oh, no. Did I close it? No, there it is.
Ryu tomorrow.
Yep. And so it was Ryu tomorrow, Stripling Saturday.
That's Sunday.
And that's Sunday. So that's pretty good. I'll say that. And that's all they got. And the Blue Jays will be facing Zach Greinke, Jose Urquidy. I forget how you say his name.
It's Urquidy.
Urquidy. That's what it was.
Isn't it? It's tough
on Baseball Reference, it looks like a G. Thanks, Baseball Reference, for your terrible font. And then Luis Garcia, who has been actually very good for the Astros this year as a find for them. I believe he was a draft pick for them way back when, but he's finally starting to show some fruit on that whole thing. So the Blue Jays have a weekend series here at home against the Houston Astros, and this could be a rough weekend for the Blue Jays. I hope the offense keeps clicking, boys, because we're going to need a good start from Stripling against Urquidy to keep this, I think, series win thing going here a little bit. What say you?
Well, tomorrow's game is going to be thoroughly entertaining with Ryu and Greinke. I think that's going to be fun. Blue Jays haven't really fared well against Greinke, especially I think it was Mother's Day that they played Greinke,
yep.
and
There's a day he almost near hit. He was hitting us for like 3 innings, wasn't he?
Yeah. 17 batters he struck, I want to say, but in the past 22. Is that I read it on Twitter today. I don't know, whatever.
Either way, Blue Jays batters equal bad against Zach Greinke, apparently.
Yeah, he's going to be rough, but then again, Blue Jays are on a roll right now when it comes to how they're hitting, so hopefully they'll be able to figure it out. Are you asking for predictions for the whole series right now?
Yeah, what do you think for the series against the Astros, seeing you started off the conversation, Adam?
This whole stretch is going to be rough. Because what do they got? Houston, and then Chicago, and then Boston. New York, and Boston, New York. Yeah, it's going to be rough. Fuck it. Let's go 2 out of 3.
Yeah, 2 out of 3. Okay.
2 out of 3.
So, Brendan, what do you think? How do you think we're going to fare throughout the Astros series against what we just laid out?
I wish I was as confident as Adam. Sign me up for one game, unfortunately. I think in this stretch before we record next, which is either going to be Wednesday or Thursday, I think maybe just for consistency's sake, because both games, all games next week are 8 o'clock. Probably just do Thursday next week. But between now and then, for those 2 series, 3-3 is definitely the goal. And it's tough. I'm not sure which one. Maybe because they're in Buffalo, maybe the 2 out of 3 comes against Houston. But I could see it against either or. So yeah, give me 1 out of 3 this series against Houston, and I'll kick off the White Sox 1-2. I'll take 2 out of 3 there. I think they're a team very similar to the Blue Jays, where maybe if the pitching matchups fall their way, they could steal 2. The good thing is Ryu pitches that game tomorrow, and he will get the last game of the White Sox series too, which sucks as well because he misses the entire Red Sox series, which is a 4-gamer. So,
but you will get Ray in that equation too. So we're getting one of our better pitchers going during that series. So, in hindsight, I guess Brendan goes 3-3 over the next week.
Yeah. I just don't know which one they'll win 2 and which one they'll only win 1. If they do any better than that, then hey, they're really hot.
Yeah. There you go.
Side note. Give me that 3:07 start time on Saturday.
Yes,
though.
There
I
you go.
cannot
Inject
wait.
that.
I thought that was very interesting for that ballpark too, because I don't think even the Bisons play many games at 3:00
Right.
on those days either.
No.
So that was very interesting. I feel like they're trying to like help out Adam apparently with his
Yeah.
Christmas
Hey.
gift again or
Hey.
something.
By the time that game is over is when I want it to start during the week. So that's fine. I'll for the White Sox too, I'm gonna go 2 out of 3. I think the Blue Jays will be on a roll, and heading into Fenway, they're gonna need it. So I'm gonna say what
it's
is that?
4-2 for the
out
week.
Of 6,
4-2.
4-2. Right? Yeah. So there you go. Boom.
Okay. I'm actually in the school of thought of Adam that I think we're going to find a way to get 4-2 over the week here. I really wouldn't be shocked if they actually sweep the White Sox. I have a feeling.
Whoa!
I have a feeling.
Oh, man.
I unfortunately, that means for me to be 4-2, that means we're going to get screwed by the Astros. So just, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but
Yeah.
I have a feeling, and my gut's been pretty good, except for on Alek Manoah's start for my pick to click this week. So,
You did pick a sweep against Miami. So.
I did,
that's
so
true.
I got
That
that. So I just want to have my brooms ready. Maybe it's because I don't know where my actual broom in my house went. It's just MIA.
Yeah.
So
It's at Sahlen because they just swept
Yes.
them. So
there you go. I forgot I put it on the bus and shipped it to Buffalo. There it is.
yeah.
So on that note, then let's do picks to click. Then last week, Mr. Panicar had Teoscar Hernandez. Very salvageable week. I'm already out of the running, as I mentioned, with Alek Manoah, unfortunately not having that second stellar start after the ridiculous Yankees outing. And then Marcus... Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. I read this wrong. Adam was the one that picked Alek Manoah.
Damn it! I did.
Oh.
I forgot that it's not in the order of CBA across the sheet. It's in
Yeah,
Brendan. It's in Brendan, Adam, me.
Who did you
So
have, Craig?
I actually had Semyon.
Oh, it's over.
Yeah, that's it.
So
It's over.
I don't know. It is what it is, but you guys are giving
Did
it to me,
Chris
is what
pick-
I'm hearing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you take that one.
Did Chris pick Robbie Ray again?
He
It
did.
doesn't matter.
I'm carrying it over.
It's
But we
always-
actually have
yeah.
fans listening tonight, so and apparently
All right.
chatting on the Twitter feed. So if you're listening and you want your pick in, I will write your name in right now, and we'll call it a day for the pick to click. Otherwise, submit on the Twitter feed when we post the episode for the podcast this evening, and make sure you get it in before tomorrow's start.
Yes,
first
please.
pitch. So, anyways. On that note, if you guys are giving me the Marcus Semien one, that's another win for me. I'm actually at even 5 and running away with this shit. So,
Am I on the board? Did I get
you
one
are
yet?
on the board.
Yeah. All right.
You are on the board. You got Randall last week or the week before.
All right.
That's right.
I'm this crew's Orioles. I get it. All right. Cool.
There it
Let's
is.
go.
Maybe Carl Edwards Jr. is all over you this week.
Yes. No, I'm good.
So I guess we're gonna Adam, seeing you are at the moment, like you were just alluded to, you only got
Terrible.
one win. Tell me who you take, who you want.
Oh God! All right. So tomorrow we got Greinke, and then this is gonna be a tough series. Who's gonna be consistent?
As Brendan mentioned, though, if you were looking for a stellar pitcher performance, Hyunjin Ryu does have 2 starts in the 6 games. That would actually be outside of the box for the pitching thing for what we were talking about.
Yeah, but that first inning makes me uncomfortable, especially teams like Chicago and Houston right now.
Teams that have good offenses.
Yeah, I don't want to pick Simeon because I don't want to ruin it. Let's go Lourdes because he's on a small little run, and I think he's being slept on a little bit. And let's hope that he keeps it going, especially because he's going to be playing his brother this weekend. So let's go Lourdes.
Batting in the 7/8 spot for him has actually been a sneaky way for him to resurge a little bit here. He had a nice week.
Yeah.
Brendan?
I'm gonna go completely off the board because
Carl Edwards Jr.
Rut. No, not that off the board. No, you guys are gonna look at me like I have 2 heads or something. But for whatever reason, maybe because the bar is low, and for this guy to be considered in the running to win, I'm gonna go Ross Stripling, and that's because he's had 2 really good starts in a row, and maybe those mechanics finally have kicked in working with Pete Walker. The appearance after the Rays game, 7 innings, and he didn't allow a run, only gave up 1 hit, and then he continued that in the Cleveland. And if they win Ross Stripling's start, then it's just like, yeah, of course you got to take 2 out of 3 at that point. So, and I think the bar is low for when we come back and record next Thursday to be like, okay, Brennan had Ross Stripling and they won and he pitched well. So let me go with that.
There you go.
Opposite approach. Yeah.
Yes.
That is something that we actually forgot to touch on when I made that goof comment that was his best start of the year for the Blue Jays. The fact that he has been actually, well, one of his better ones.
Yeah, because the last one, didn't he strike out like 9 or 10?
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
I did forget that. But apparently that was he did half of the mechanics or something like that. Apparently this one, he was saying that this is the where he fully adapted the new mantra, the new mechanics. And
yeah, he's tipping his pitches.
Yeah, and I really am not shocked by that with how the Blue Jays were just seeming to pour out runs when he was on the mound. It just seemed very odd. And then, the relief pitchers came in. Yes, we have some really good arms in our bullpen, but to see that night and day effect from the hitters on the opposing teams was a little odd, you know what I mean? It just doesn't change that quickly. So, anyway, my pick. Randall Grichuk had 2 home runs last night. Randall Grichuk is a notoriously streaky player. I am going to ride him for this next week being he's just going to run for a week and then he'll, turn into a pumpkin for 5 minutes. And then at least that hasn't been his whole MO this year. Those slumps have been like 2-game spurts versus the whatnot. Exactly. So I'm going to ride Randall Grichuk for hopefully what will be my 6th win of the season. But I'm strangely thinking that my luck is going to run out here very shortly because last year I didn't even get one at all. the whole half game season. So anyways, fellas, I've been already kind of reading off the Twitter stuff while we've been playing here and whatnot. Is there anything you would like to add or give a shout out to anything before we do 2 claps and Ric Flair?
No. Just shout out to the Blue Jays for being awesome in Buffalo. Keep it up.
I love Buffalo BJs. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
This is a family-friendly show.
Yes.
Yeah, meanwhile, I've been dropping F-bombs the whole show, but this is what it is. So, but anyway, I'm glad that the Blue Jays have a home for the rest of the season, and it's not the minor list of the minorest, lowest levels of the minor leagues. So it's very good to see the Buffalo City embrace them fully, and I really think it's going to be fun for them to finish this out if they end up being there the rest of the season. On that note, fellas, it's that time. 2 claps and a Ric Flair.
Let's go.
Woo! Let's go Blue Jays.